I wanted first to start by thanking the Prime Minister and Dr. Tam for briefing myself and the other opposition leaders on the current state of affairs with the COVID pandemic and our projections for the future. And without going into any of the specifics about those details, which will be shared shortly with people in Canada, I can say what comes as no surprise to any of us, which is that this is an incredibly urgent situation. It is one that we do not have a handle on. It is one that, unless we take dramatic, urgent, and immediate action, is expected to get worse. And it is certainly expected to cost more people in Canada their lives. We've seen today that the numbers are increasing. We saw 100 deaths yesterday. There is no end in sight unless we take urgent action. And so with that in mind, the Green Party of Canada intends to ask the Speaker of the House for an emergency debate on the COVID pandemic. More than anything, this is first in recognition that this is a national emergency. And by national emergency, I mean that it transcends any particular jurisdiction. It is not simply a health issue. It is also an issue that affects our economy. It has touched every aspect of our society. When I speak to people in the community, when I speak to business associations, when I speak with medical associations, when I speak with those who represent seniors and those who are aging, the message is the same, that this is an existential threat. This is one of the two existential threats that we are confronting right now as a country. And so people in Canada, myself included, want to make sure that our parliamentarians are doing all that they can, that every single day they are entering that house and saying to themselves, have we done everything we can at the federal level in order to protect people in Canada? Is there anything more that we can do? As I have said, and the Green Party has said, I think that there is indeed much more that we can do. We have heard our Canadian Medical Association indicating that the lack of collaboration and cooperation between our levels of government has put lives at risk and is making the pandemic worse for people in Canada than it need be. And so I want to see an intergovernmental COVID task force, not as a means of any level of government imposing anything on another, but as a way that we can make sure that best practices are exchanged, that knowledge is exchanged, and that wherever possible, the messaging, the codification, the thresholds that trigger restrictions or other measures are standardized, and so that people in Canada have clear messaging about what they should and should not do. And that is so important as we head into the holiday season. We're in a situation now of message confusion. We don't know what we should and should not do to protect our communities, and in different parts of the country, we need to make sure that wherever possible, we are speaking with one voice. I believe that's what people in Canada expect. It's clearly what our frontline workers, our health workers are asking for. And it's something that I believe if we come together, as we did today, in a spirit of cooperation and collaboration on behalf of people and driven by the data and the science, I believe that it is something that we can accomplish. Alors, en français, je voulais d'abord remercier notre Premier ministre et aussi Dr. Tam pour notre réunion. J'ai reçu avec les autres chefs d'opposition une présentation sur notre cas d'urgence avec COVID, sur la situation actuelle et sur les projections pour le futur. Et sans dévoiler l'information que j'ai reçue, je crois que ça ne vient pas comme surprise à aucune personne que nous sommes dans une situation d'urgence. Et si nous ne prenons pas des actions urgentes aussi, qu'il y aura de plus en plus morts ici. Je voulais souligner ce qui est clair, c'est que c'est un cas d'urgence nationale et c'est une carte d'urgence qui touche toutes les juridictions, qui ne touche pas seulement notre santé, mais aussi notre économie, aussi tout notre système d'éducation, tous les secteurs, tous les domaines de notre société ont été touchés, affectés par la pandémie. Alors, une crise nationale réclame une solution nationale aussi. Alors, le Parti vert, nous allons demander pour un débat urgent sur la pandémie dans la Chambre de communs. On le demande exactement parce que je sais que les gens au Canada veulent voir, être assurés que leurs parlementaires se lèvent chaque jour et pensent aux solutions et qu'ils se demandent qu'est-ce que nous puissions faire aujourd'hui dans cette Chambre pour aider les gens au Canada, pour les protéger. À notre avis, il y a des choses que nous pouvons faire. C'est clair que nous avons besoin des messages qui sont beaucoup plus unifiés, beaucoup plus clairs autour du pays. Nous pouvons aussi créer des systèmes de codification qui assurent que les restrictions sont déclenchées de la même manière et pour les mêmes raisons partout au pays et qu'il y a un échange dynamique d'informations entre les différents niveaux de gouvernement. Il n'est pas de question d'imposer quoi que ce soit sur le gouvernement fédéral, imposer une solution sur les autres niveaux de gouvernement. C'est une question de se rassembler pour faire ce qui est mieux pour les gens au Canada. Et moi, j'ai confiance que c'est possible. C'est possible de nous rassembler de même manière que nous avons fait aujourd'hui pour échanger informations, pour discuter des solutions, parce que nous sommes dans une pandémie. Et ce n'est pas une question partisane, c'est vraiment une question de chaque parlementaire faire le mieux pour représenter les personnes au Canada. And so I hope that we will have the opportunity to have this emergency debate. Whether we do or not, I will say that the Green Party, even as we speak about the climate and Bill C-12 and other important pieces of legislation which are before the House, we will continue to make sure that every single day we are thinking about what else can we do, what is left that we haven't done to make sure that people in Canada are safe. There's no question that we can protect more people in Canada if we do it together than if we have 13 different approaches. That's very clear. Merci.
And we'll now take questions, starting with questions on the phone. As usual, one question, one follow-up per reporter. Nous allons maintenant prendre les questions, commençant par les questions au téléphone. Comme d'habitude, une question suivie par journaliste. Opératrice, avons-nous une première question?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser votre question. There will be a brief pause while the participant register for question. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. Thank you for your patience. Merci de patienter. Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. There are no questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons pas de questions pour le moment. I would now like to return the meeting back over.
Yes, we'll now take questions.
La parole est à vous.
Oui, we'll now take questions from the room. David?
Afternoon, Ms. Paul. David Thornton, CBC News. This is your second press conference that you're giving today. Noticing a bit of a change in your body language and your demeanor. Should we read anything from that? Should we read that maybe what you learned in that meeting was really, heavy?
Well, it's my second press conference today because I am not in Ottawa that much, and I certainly want to make the most of it. And there was a lot of very important news today. The Green Party has said that we face two defining crises right now, one of which is this pandemic and the other which is the climate. And today there were two very important things that happened. We had Bill C-12 introduced, and we also had the briefing by Dr. Tam, that was organized by the Prime Minister. And again, we committed, and I think that that's right, to wait until the news has been officially communicated by Dr. Tam, and it will be very shortly. I don't think that it's any surprise to anyone that the news that I heard was not good. It is not good. It is troubling. It worries me, and it will worry every Canadian. And I hope that what we hear will be enough to make sure that we do what is necessary, which is to have a more coordinated national response that does not preclude any modifications or adjustments to reflect regional realities, but it does allow things that have not been happening well enough to this point to happen, including a better exchange of best practices, including using the information that we now have about the way that this virus works to develop national thresholds that would trigger things like lockdowns or releases from lockdowns, et cetera, and that would allow us to, as we enter the holiday season in particular, to have very clear, consistent messaging about what we should and should not be doing in order to protect ourselves and the people in our community.
Totally different question. Did you get any sense, or did anyone who was in that meeting, because all the party leaders were there, that there was an appetite for increased cross-party, cross-provincial, cross-territorial cooperation?
Well, speaking for myself, I can say that everything that I heard pointed in the direction of increasing that cooperation, because there are certain things where just good common sense will tell you that if you have a coordinated approach, if you have clear and consistent and unified messaging, that you're going to be doing a better job. And as I said, one of those areas that really jumped out to me was thresholds, knowing what reproduction rate within a community should trigger a lockdown, or decrease in reproduction rates should trigger an exit from a lockdown. What rate of transmission within long-term care facilities should trigger different measures and procedures. And so if we were all in that briefing, and if the leaders of the other parties heard what I heard, which is that unless we make radical change, and we've heard this from Dr. Tam before, so I'm not spilling the beans here, unless we make radical change rapidly across jurisdictions, we can expect things to get worse. And so, and the only way that things will improve is if we have clear messaging that is accepted and respected by people in Canada. That's only going to happen, of course, if we have consistent messaging. People really need to know what to do so that they can do it. And it is very confused. I'm confused. We also need systemic change. That was the other thing that was very clear. There's only so much we can do as individuals. We really need system change if we're going to bend the curve.
And I'll check one last time if there's any question on the phone. Est-ce qu'il y a des questions au téléphone, opératrice?
Thank you. Merci. Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. There are no questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons pas de questions pour le moment. You may proceed. À vous la parole.
Thank you. Ceci met fin à la conférence de presse. This concludes the press conference. Thanks.
Merci.